Hi, Rob.
Hi Dana, how are you?
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm doing well. Yeah, happy Friday.
I'm trying to frame myself here so you can see the whole of me, but here I am. Happy Friday to you. Happy Friday to everybody who's joining us today. That's so lovely.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, and thanks to everyone else for joining us.
Absolutely.
This is our first, potentially weekly, as I just said, live with first session, and this one in particular, we're going to be.
I'm your first.
You are first. Yeah,
What an honor. That's so nice.
thanks for just jumping in like that.
You got it. You got
Yeah,
it.
and yeah, so I'm really excited to just have a good chat about mental health, and I think you have lots to share, and you're an amazing example in the community of someone who's not afraid to share and
Thank
can
you.
lead like that. So I think you're a perfect guest. So I'm gonna just read a quick bio for everyone who may not know you, if that's all right.
Thank
So
you.
this is Dana Levenson. She's a media personality, best known for her 20 years as a reporter and anchor at CTV News. She is now the host of her own show called On the DL, which can be found on all podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify. And the full interviews are coming soon to YouTube and Facebook. For more information and to connect with Dana, head to her Instagram page, which you can all see right now. It's at Dana Levinson. So tell us a little bit more about your podcast at first.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Rob. That's lovely. I appreciate that. So the podcast is called On the DL, as you just said. It's You can find it anywhere that you listen to podcasts. I say Apple and Spotify because that's what I think people really tend to gravitate towards. But the premise of the show itself is about having candid, conscious conversations out loud that resonate with people. And most of those conversations have been, I would say, centered around mental health and definitely around wellness. So we cover every topic under the sun. You name it, we'll talk about it. If you have a story to tell, or if you have something you want to share that you really believe will help others, then we talk about it. And I have been speaking to people anywhere from experts to very well-known people, media personalities, famous people, people you've never heard of before, and they join me and they let it out, and they have a platform to speak the truth. And it's the feedback that I've been receiving has been extraordinary. I feel very grateful.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I understand that you're usually asking the questions, and I have the honor to ask you a few questions today.
Go for it.
Yeah. So how do you think about mental health when it comes to your overall health? Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, I put mental health first and foremost. It is to me I am grateful that I have my physical health, but I believe that my physical health is where it's at because mentally I feel stable and I feel sound. And it wasn't always that way. And it has certainly come and gone, and it's come in waves or ebbs and flows, however you want to say it. And when I am not feeling mentally there and stable and good, I have to find a space to get back to where I do find mentally well. Because when I'm not, my physical health goes downhill very quickly. And so I saw that happening to myself several years ago, and I ignored all the signs. And I think that's where a lot of people are at right now, is that they are ignoring the signs. So they're not speaking about it. They're masking their problems. We're in isolation, and we are at a very critical point in our individual mental health journeys and collectively when we look at mental health as a community. So it's a turning point for sure, I think, in the next few months, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I think everyone, as we celebrated the last New Year at the end of the year, everyone was so happy that 2020 was over, and
Mm.
here we are, 3+ months in, and it's still the same, and there's all these extra innings that keep on happening.
Yes, where's that finish line?
Yeah,
Hmm.
and yeah, I know we're lucky to be have our health now. So you mentioned that several years back you were ignoring all the signs. When did you start? When did you start listening to the signs? What did it take for you to pay attention to that?
So I'll rewind just a little bit just to give you some context and for people who are listening. So I had been a reporter and anchor at CTV for over a decade, and around that 10-year mark, I was moved into the weekend weather anchor position. So I was doing weekend nights till midnight, and then I was back during the week reporting. So I was really shifting my sleep schedule and my life. Really, I was up and down, up and down. And I had very young children at the time, and also going through a very stressful divorce, which was a very personal crisis for myself as well. And it all started to happen around then. But everybody and everything came first, except for me. So my children came first, my work came first, life came first, but my health was not first. So I started to see, of course, a decline physically because I was so sleep deprived. I started to have chronic stomach issues,
Mm.
and I was always in pain. I was always complaining that something was wrong and something hurt. I had a headache, or I was grinding every night. And so I was very disconnected to my physical self. And I just was very robotic. I kept going along because I felt that to survive and the position that I was in, I had to embrace where I was at. And I always felt grateful that I was at a place that I was working at a place that I loved. I loved the people that I was working with, and so grateful to be in the industry that I had trained to be in and had gone to school for so long, and just really loved where I was. So I always practiced gratitude and would say to myself, I'm grateful, I'm grateful, I'm grateful. But I was
Hmm.
hurting. I was hurting inside, and I was very disconnected as to why. And to the world, it would just seem like, well, she's a single mother and she has two young kids and she's tired and she's stressed. And yes, it was all of that, but it was much more layered and a lot deeper than that. So it took many years for this to build. And I had my first panic attack on live television at 11:30 in the evening on a Sunday night, and I had no idea what was happening, none.
Hmm.
It took my breath away, literally, and I did get some help shortly after. It happened several times until I really took the step to speak to somebody. And through a lot of therapy and a lot of work, I was able to create my own space and lean into it and say, it is time for me to make a change. It's okay to be vulnerable. And I'm going to use every ounce of courage that I have to do this. And I did it. I made a huge change, and I left a job that I loved because I wasn't getting what I needed from that job. Although I had tried several times to get the change I needed, I wasn't transparent. I wasn't loud enough. I didn't use my voice. I didn't come out and say to my managers or my bosses, I am struggling, I'm suffering, I can't do this anymore, I need to change. I didn't say it. And so instead, I walked away with my tail between my legs, so to speak, and I made a huge change. Now, that being said, I'm so happy that I did, because not living out in a way that I didn't feel valued, and I didn't feel like I was being experienced the way I needed to be experienced in my work was part of the demise of my mental health. So it took the work of a therapist and myself really working on what it was that was creating this I would say this bubble of not so much shame, but
Hmm.
there was a lot of shame and blame, and it was always on myself. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I make that choice? Why why? And you could say that all you want, but there's that fine line between the why and really your health. And so I struggled a lot with it, and I really pushed forward and used my courage muscle and made that change. But I have to tell you that with that change came another host of mental health issues too.
Mm,
And there comes the loss. And
mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I didn't prepare for what that loss would feel like either. And my kids would say to me all the time, Mom, you're so down. What's wrong with you? Why are you so down? And I kept thinking, why am I so down? I should be happy. And when I refocused and I stepped into, I really use this word, I don't want to use it lightly, and I say it uh, with a lot of meaning. When I stepped into my power
Mm-hmm.
and began to really live a journey of purpose and intention and what I really wanted to do, everything started to change for me. Really started to change for me. I slept better, I ate better, I felt better, I moved better, I loved better. Everything changed for me. And now, and that's why I'm so grateful that you introduced me and talked about my show and what I'm doing around mental health and wellness, um, makes me feel good.
Mm.
And I believe that people need to, if they can, if they have the opportunity, to pivot a bit and say, maybe it's not just COVID. Maybe it's not just isolation. Maybe I've had all this time by myself or isolated from friends and family to actually think about what makes me happy and to start having a plan what makes them happy. And sometimes you can't do that on your own. Sometimes you need someone to do that with you.
Mm. That's amazing. Yeah, and by the sounds of it, you didn't just quit your job.
No.
You intentionally realized that it wasn't serving you anymore, and so tell us about that because I think that's important to realize that, maybe people watching are just like, well, I can't quit my job.
No,
You,
and you shouldn't.
right,
No, and you shouldn't. And I've told people this, and I continue to tell people this all the time. You don't just wake up in the morning and quit your job. Everybody needs a job, and you need money, and you have to take care of yourself and your family, and you need to have a plan. And this was in the works for years when I realized that
right.
my mental health was in, like, I wasn't functioning the way I needed it to, and that I was sick all the time,
Mm,
that I needed to start having a plan. And so you have to start building on that plan. And I tell people to take a piece of paper and start writing down all the things that they love about their job and all the things that they don't like about their job and what can they cross over, right? What can they, where do they have the ability to make the changes? And if you have been able to go through all the channels to make those changes, that being speaking to a boss, speaking to a manager, speaking to other people that work in the same position as you, perhaps speaking to a mentor. If you've exhausted all those possibilities, then it's time to make a change. But you have to have a plan. You cannot just walk away without having money, because that will kill you. Like literally, that will kill you. So we talk about mental health. That will put you into a deep, dark place if you're not
mm,
able to take care of yourself. So I had a plan, and I was waiting for the right time, and it all the pieces fell into place at the right time in May 2019. I can't believe it's been that long, or June, and I left in July, and I had the support of the managerial team
mm.
to exit. They were beautiful, and we have a beautiful relationship still. Um, and notwithstanding, would I go back? Perhaps, because when I left, everyone's like, "Oh, there she goes. We'll never see." People say we'll never see her again on TV. But that's not the case. The case is I needed this time for me to step into a place where I felt most valued and to do the work where I was building a community where people had their voice being heard around issues that are so important. And I wanted to do that well before COVID hit. And then COVID hits, and I'm already set up to do it. And there we go. And it's off and running. And it really was an extraordinary experience a year ago. And I just keep building on the momentum now.
Yeah, that's very inspiring.
Yeah.
I'm curious, before that you mentioned maybe when you were still in your job that it
Mhm.
sounded like maybe your kind of entry point into starting to notice your mental health or starting to like be proactive was gratitude, you mentioned. And I think that's like, I imagine there's some people that can relate to that because I think that's one of the kind of popular things that are, whether it's a gratitude journal or kind of starting your day with some words of gratitude. But it sounds like that, maybe I'm sure you can say this better, but maybe that brought some temporary relief, but maybe it just didn't quite get you to where you wanted to go. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand what being grateful really means because what grateful did for me was it actually made me complacent. So I really wasn't practicing
Mm,
gratitude. I was just saying I was grateful for all the good things in my life, but not practicing gratitude. And there's a difference when you practice and when you say you're grateful. And so, and not to diminish all the things I was grateful for, but it did make me incredibly complacent. So
mhm,
I was grateful for my job. I was grateful for the people I worked with. I was so grateful for where I worked, but I became complacent. So I thought, well, how dare I not be grateful? So in a way, through that process, I silenced myself and I didn't have a voice. And that's not okay. And you can't do that when you want to be grateful. You to really practice gratitude. I believe you compartmentalize the things that you are grateful for, and that does fill you up. It makes you feel much better. But being complacent at the same time will not help your gratitude process at all. And so I was very complacent until sort of that, light bulb goes off. And I went, wait a second, where I am right now, it's not the end. This can't be the end. This has to be the way station. I
mhm.
need to get to that next chapter. How do I do that? So I didn't want to be resentful, but I didn't want to be complacent. So I decided I'm going to continue to be grateful. I'm so grateful for all the wonderful things that my job offered me. And I took all of that with me. And I continue to have all of those incredible feelings for that experience in my life. A lot of people walk away from 20 years in a position and at a job, and they're angry.
Mhm.
I feel very fortunate because I am grateful, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Okay.
does. It does. And
Yeah.
I think it takes a certain amount of effort and alignment to actually make that true. And I never worked anywhere for 20 years, so I can't relate.
Yeah. Well, I'm
But
a little older than you, Rob, probably for sure. But I think also what you do when you're on your mental health journey is that you have, you're a lot of people have hit the bottom of the barrel right now, and they're feeling like, we talk about this every week on my show, whether it's they're at the end with their partner, they have their sexual health is horrible, their financial health is horrible, they feel like they can't parent properly, they have disordered eating, and it's all, mental health is the umbrella to all of
mm,
these different problems. And you have to somehow, I want to empower people to get to a place where they start becoming thoughtful and choiceful, because you have a choice. And people are feeling so awful right now that they feel like they don't have a choice. There's no choice out there. There's nothing. They just are going to feel the doom and gloom, and there's no end to any of it. And that is a horrible way to live. It's a horrible way to live. So we have to, as a community, help people use their voices, like what you're doing right now is helping people use their voice. And as the more we say it out loud, the better off we all will be.
mhm, mhm. And you were at CTV, and uh, you mentioned that you kind of after experiencing the panic attack and you were in therapy for some time. Had you ever like what might you have done differently? Like, did you have access to benefits for example, at CTV, did you ever use them? Did you ever go to therapy before? Like, what might you
100%.
have done differently earlier on to?
100%, 100%. Yes, they had a fantastic benefits package. I and I did use every cent of it when I saw a therapist. I had been in therapy before in my early 20s. That was my first real bout with living with depression. I had no clue what it was. But I had a very close friend who still to this day is my dearest, closest friend who really helped center me and said, you know, something's wrong. You should go speak to somebody. Something's wrong. I'll speak to somebody. I don't
Hmm,
need to speak to
hmm,
anybody with that. That's like crazy talk.
yeah.
And I did, and it worked, and uh, that really helped. This was, you know, very early on in I guess in my life, in my early 20s, but it gave me tools to get through that stage of my life that helped me. So yes, I did speak to a therapist then. Um, Now at this stage, when I went to speak with a therapist, yes, I used my benefits, and benefits really, you know, interestingly, I had not the boss when I left CTV, the boss, two bosses prior to that. There was three boss changes, actually four boss changes when I was there. But let's say my second boss had kindly brought me into his office. Oh gosh, this was back in 2008, 2009. Ah! And said, he brought me into his office, and I don't feel like I'm being, I don't even know what the word is, unfaithful by disclosing this conversation, because I'm not saying who it is. But I came in and I sat down with him, and he asked if he could speak with me. And I sat down, and he, across his desk, he slides a pamphlet, like right across the desk. He said, "Here, there are people you know that you can talk to." What?
Hmm, hmm,
So it was showing, I guess, in my demeanor, in my weight,
hmm.
um, and he was concerned. He was concerned about me. And he said, "You should speak to somebody about what's going on in your life."
And was
And
that effective for you? Did that just turn you off even more?
uh,
That interaction with your manager.
you know what? It didn't turn me off. It didn't turn me off. I felt like he cared about me, but I didn't think he cared enough to listen to why I felt um, that something was wrong.
Right. So he didn't want to talk, but he wanted to give you
Uh,
a pamphlet.
no, you know what? It wasn't his fault. I didn't open up to him. It wasn't his fault. Perhaps he would have. I bet you now, if I called him up and I told him that, he'd be horrified. He'd say, "What? You didn't tell me. You should have
Hmm.
talked to me about it." But I was very closed because that's sort of where I come from. I'm not saying where I come from in terms of my family. I'm saying like where Dana, come from. I come from a place where I've always centered myself in that I'm a very public person, but
Hmm.
I'm a very public private person. People had no idea what was going on with me, and I didn't want anyone to know because I had a persona
Hmm.
that I wanted to live up to and be, and um, it was important to me to be that way. So that's why I didn't really talk to anybody. No one at work knew what was going on. And when I tell you about my first panic attack, it was several panic attacks until I finally spoke to somebody.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And since now that you're so public about all this, do you and you had such
Ish.
deep deep deep,
Ish.
deep
Ish, Rob. Ish. I don't
yeah.
I've only spoken about my mental health out loud only a few times, really, like
Hmm.
in this way. I've always felt like if now I'm asked, for sure I'm going to share because I ask that of the people that share with me.
Hmm.
So I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think
No.
it's really important that people understand that I really am starting to use my voice because I believe that I have the ability to help other people. And for 2 decades, the way my voice was being used was not the way I felt that I could be valued and really lean into my purpose.
And my question was that now that maybe some of your contacts in the media space are more familiar with your story, have you noticed a lot of people
I don't know.
have you noticed people reaching out to you and sharing some of their experiences because you've taken the first step in some cases?
Um, I will tell you that my friends who are in media are still in media are super brave. There are several of them that have spoken out loud over the last couple of years. Many have aligned with Bell Let's Talk, which is a wonderful platform.
Hmm.
I did not. I was reported on it, but I never spoke about it. And I do believe that my the current bosses that when I left CTV, if they were to hear about this, they would be probably a bit devastated, to be honest. A little bit devastated because they didn't know. It was, I'm leaving. I love you all, but I need a change. And that was the truth. That was 100% the truth. I was not making that up. I did need a change. I couldn't find advocate for me to have the change there. So um, I think I don't think I'm definitely not the first, and there's several that have come, especially since COVID has started. Several
Hmm.
have come out and started talking about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know anybody who's not affected.
No, I know. Yeah, well, I just think of just media as a career in general, where, like any other job, you have to perform, you have to be there for your manager, but media, you're really performing every day.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's easier to put on a persona and just completely hide
You know,
in
and I
that.
felt, I agree, there is definitely a TV persona, but I felt that where I would shine is when I was myself. So when I was out in the field and I'm reporting and I start giving a little bit of myself to the person I'm reporting, they would open up and I would get, quote, the news clip, or I would get the great soundbite because that person said what you needed them to say. And often people would say to me afterwards, wow, how did you get that person to say that? Or, wow, that was a great soundbite. And I thought, it's just because I shared something of myself. And those magical moments, I knew that there was a space for that magic. And that wasn't happening for me at CTV. So I needed to paint my own door that I could just bulldoze through and say, that door opened for me. And that's what I did.
Yeah, good for you. That's amazing.
Thank you.
I know we're now at 4:30. And any closing thoughts? I know I was thinking about asking you about being a mom during COVID.
Do it. Ask me whatever ask me whatever you want. Being a mom during COVID. Well, it's been interesting to say the least. I have teenagers, and we also are a big blended family. There are 5 kids between us, and also it's yeah, it's been very challenging. Sometimes it's been incredible. More than sometimes, I have to say, it has been incredible to be with your kids in this way. I've really seen my children in a different light um, that I don't think I would have had the opportunity beforehand. Definitely not to see them in this way. And we have for sure become a lot closer. But there are times where I'm pulling my hair. I'm literally pulling my hair out of my head because I can't believe what's going on in my house. But I think no, seriously, and sometimes it starts as early in the morning. I'm like,
Hmm.
what is happening? This place is bananas. But that's normal. That is the new normal. And you have to, as a parent, I believe, you've got to cut yourself some slack. It is not perfection all the time. You cannot
Hmm.
be in that perfect space. Your house can't be perfect. You can't look perfect. You can't feel perfect if you are going to stay present with your family most of the time. And I've made that choice. That's part of my thoughtful choice process is to be that. And I'm so grateful that I'm able to work from home and be around and be there for my family at this time. But yes, it is definitely challenging. And I feel for every parent who has children under the age of 10. I don't know. I don't know how they're doing it. I think would be that in itself would be, I don't even know what the words would be. I'd be out of my
Hmm.
mind. Mhm.
I'm with you.
Oh,
I
you've
can't.
got kids? You've got,
No,
yeah.
I'm with you.
Oh,
In terms of I can't relate to that. I can't imagine what that'd be like, and I do not have any kids yet.
okay. Any
Uh,
pets? Any pets?
I have a pet. I have a pet dog. He's originally from Mexico. His name is Miguel. Yeah,
Ah,
and
Miguel.
he's recovering from surgery right now.
Oh no.
He hurt his leg. But next week we'll be able to take him on walks again, which will be
Oh,
nice. Because
Rob, I have the same in my house right now.
really,
Yeah, our 9-month-old puppy hurt his leg, and he's in a splint and a cast, and he's recovering now. It's terrible.
hmm
It's,
hmm
it's having a fur baby. It's like having a newborn all over again. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
lot of work.
he's our only child. Yeah, he gets spoiled.
Yeah, well,
Um, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I'll let you get off to your weekend.
thank you. You too. It was such a pleasure speaking with you. Such a joy.
You as well. Yeah, I really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon, I'm sure. And thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yes, thanks everybody. That's so nice. We'll speak soon, Rob.
Okay, take
Be
care.
well.